essential amino acids at every meal. And so a vegetarian diet, by the medical literature standards, is complete in every nutritional way. I give the evidence for it there.
Yeah.
So you do not need to have, people say, well, how do you get your protein?
Yeah.
Well, there's protein in all vegetables, fruits, and grains. I have a vegetable protein chart in my workbook as well, showing that spinach is 49% protein. Lemons are 16% protein. Everything has protein in it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about getting it from animals. By the way, why would you want to eat your food secondhand? The cows are smarter than people. They get their protein from eating grass.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so then you say, well, I got to eat the cow.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they say, well, look, you know, the vegetables may have pesticides on them. Well, eat organically grown ones that don't have pesticides on them. But if you even ate vegetables and fruits that had pesticides on them, you washed them or peeled them, you're going to get a whole lot less than if you eat animal products, because the cow eats things that have pesticides on it and concentrates those pesticides in the meat, in its muscle.
Yeah.
So when you eat the cow, you're going to get 1,000 times more pesticides than if you eat the produce.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and this, of course, also is you know, devastating for the environment, in that sense that we, you know, there's so much fresh water and grains and all this stuff that goes to waste, basically because we humans have so much cattle or cows and.
All right, cows are. I have the statistics someplace, and I think I discussed those in one of my videos about how much land it takes to feed, say, 1,000 people.
Yeah.
If you're going to feed them a vegan diet, compared to if they're going to eat meat.
Yeah.
And the amount of land that's necessary to feed people an animal-based diet is, you know, huge compared to what it is to feed them a mainly vegan diet. Now, the other thing that's very important is in 1909, the incidence of cancer in America was 1 out of 33. At that time, the average American ate about 200 pounds of grains, and that's 200 pounds of potatoes, and about 300 pounds of grains. Now, the potatoes were not French fries from McDonald's. Okay, they were regular potatoes.
Yeah.
And the grains were cooked grains. And so the incidence of cancer in 1909 was 1 out of 33. By 1985, the incidence of cancer in America had grown to 1 out of 3. From 1 out of 33 to 1 out of 3. Now, what had happened?
Yeah.
Well, we had changed mainly from a fruits, grains, and vegetables-based diet to an animal products-based diet. Because during that period of time, the incidence of potato eating, of good homemade fresh potatoes, had gone down by 50%. The amount of grains eaten had gone down by 50%. The amount of milk that was being taken in by people went up over 50%. The amount of meat eating had doubled, and the amount of chicken eating had gone up 300%. And so what we had done was we went from a produce-based diet mainly to an animal products-based diet, and the incidence of cancer just absolutely became astronomical.
Yeah.
It was 1 out of 3 in 1985. Now it's 1 out of 2, and it's projected, medicine projects that by the year 2020, everyone in America will develop cancer sometime in their lifetime.
My God.
All right?
Yeah.
Now, that does not have to happen. You don't have to get cancer. You just have to learn the things that cause cancer and stop doing them. Everybody's afraid of cancer. When you're told you have a diagnosis of cancer, it frightens everybody terribly.
Yeah,
but I should say that you should be less worried about that if you know what to do than you are about heart disease. Because, see, 50% of all people with heart attacks, the first symptom is sudden death. Right? You don't have time to change.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you get a diagnosis of cancer, all you have to say is, what do I need to change? What do I need to change? Because doctors will tell you, we don't know what causes cancer. I used to say that. Well, we do know what causes cancer. And it's on my videos in my workbook because I found it in the medical literature. I was shocked because we were never taught any of that in our training. And for years, I never taught it to the doctors I trained because I didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to just think. As I said earlier, you cannot get a sick person well by giving them poison.
Exactly.
And if any of you listening have children, I would propose to you the following. Suppose you have a 10-year-old who's perfectly healthy. Well, why don't you let me have him for a few months? And I will give him 6 weeks of chemotherapy and 6 weeks of radiation, but don't worry about it. I'll pay for it. It'll be free. And I say, would you do that? You say, no, I'd never do that. I say, why? Well, make them sick, and maybe it would kill them. All right?
Yeah.
Okay, how about if I say to you, well, now your child is sick, and then you say, oh, I'll let you do chemo and radiation. You won't let me do it to them when they're well, but you'll let a doctor do it to them when they're sick. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's so desperate.
See? Yeah. We are sick because our immune system is not working right. God gave us a wonderful immune system to keep us well and to get us well if we get sick. But we have to stop injuring it.
Yeah.
You know, if a person came to me as an orthopedic surgeon and came in and said, look at my thumb, it's just mangled and it won't heal. And I say, well, what did you do? And I hit it with a hammer. Well, how long ago? Oh, I hit it with a hammer every day. Well, of course it's not going to get well if you hit it with a hammer every day.
Yeah.
But that's what we do to our bodies. We injure them every day by the food we put in our mouth, by not exercising, by not drinking water, by taking dangerous substances into our body like caffeine and NutraSweet and MSG, and sugar, and all of these things, plus the other steps in the plan. By the way, we don't have time to talk about that today so much, but what you put in your mind is just as important as what you put in your mouth.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I hope we can a little bit later talk about some of these things, get into that. But as you said, there are so many different things here that I think, as you said, contribute to why we develop these kinds of diseases. And I think it was you who mentioned. Let me see if I can pronounce this. Arachidonic acid.
Arachidonic acid is in red meat.
Yeah, what's that?
It suppresses the frontal lobes where you make your decisions on morality and the decisions about how you're going to lead your life and the decisions about financial things. And arachidonic acid in meat suppresses your ability to make decisions.
That's pretty amazing.
and people eat this stuff all day long. They can't even imagine a meal without animal products in it. Well, I haven't been eating animal products for now about 14 years.
Yeah.
And I'm totally well and cancer-free. I had no radiation, no chemotherapy. I had no mastectomy.
Yeah.
I had a biopsy at 2 different hospitals for the diagnosis, and I thought they could, at that time, I thought you could cut cancer out. You can't cut cancer out, even if the doctor says, I got it all. Well, that's ridiculous, because that's like taking a child with chicken pox who's very sick and take him to the surgeon and say, I want you to cut out all the pox marks from my child's skin so they'll be well.
Yeah.
They're not going to be well because the pox marks in the skin are just the local manifestations of a body that is totally sick. The tumor in a cancer patient is only a local manifestation of a body that is sick throughout. You have to change everything about the way you're eating and living in order to get it well. You can't just cut it out, because if you keep on doing what you've been doing, it'll come back again, either in the same place or someplace else, or you'll get some other terrible disease. And that's why second cancers occur quite frequently in people who survive their first after chemo and radiation, but the second one almost always kills them because they've had such destruction to their immune system that when the cancer comes back, either in the same place or another place, they have no immune system left to fight it, and so then they die.
And I also wanted to ask you, how about things like fermented foods and things like this? Is this something that's necessary considering when you're a vegan?
No, I do not eat fermented foods. Fermented foods are fermented. I don't eat fermented foods. I eat fresh foods. You don't need fermented foods. I know that there are like the Ann Wigmore diet and Edie May had a cookbook out, and they used a lot of fermented foods. I do not use fermented foods. I don't think they're good for the body. Fermented anything means it's rotting.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't use that. I only use fresh foods. And the more raw food you can eat, the better. By the way, I also talk about this on one of I've got 9 DVDs or videos on health. And I've got a whole CD series, and all of these things are different. They're not, the plan is not different. The plan is all the same. But I found out that people have so many questions about so many areas that, on Double Blind What Science Can't See, that's the name of the DVD, I discuss that Linus Pauling, who won the Nobel Prize for, I guess, medicine or peace, both, something, was going around the world telling you that vitamin C, high-dose vitamin C, was good for you and could help prevent cancer and colds and all sorts of things. Well, the interesting thing is that Linus Pauling had not done any research on this when he was spouting this. None at all. All right? And I'll tell you how I know that. And not only that, he developed cancer and went to orthodox doctors at the end of his life to try to get well and died of his cancer. His wife also developed cancer, so how well did that work?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So anyway, he was spouting all this, saying, 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C that you've got to take. And so a friend of his, who'd been a friend for a long time, who ran the Linus Pauling Institute, named Dr. Arthur Robinson, he said, you're telling this to everybody. We haven't done any research on this. Why don't we do some research? And so they set up the research plan. And what they found, where they used laboratory animals and gave them the same equivalent doses for the size of the animal, and they found out that they developed cancer. All right, high-dose vitamins, not only vitamin C, but other vitamins they gave in those equivalent high doses cause cancer to grow. And so when Linus Pauling found this out, he then confiscated all of his friends' papers and fired him, threw him out. All right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason I know this is I have talked to the friend, Dr. Arthur Robinson. And he has documented this, and Linus Pauling destroyed a lot of his papers, research papers, even research papers that were his before he ever met Pauling. And so eventually Dr. Arthur Robinson went to court and received a judgment of $500,000 against Linus Pauling. But one thing they did find out, and he wrote me this in the letter when I had heard about an interview with him, and I did a search to try and find this man, and I found him, and he confirmed that all this is true. They then, after they used these high-dose vitamins that found out it caused cancer, then he said they put the animals on a totally vegan diet, and their tumors regressed.
There we go.
Not only vegan, but it was raw vegan diet. Their tumors regressed.
Yeah, and we should, I guess, stress that too, because do you mostly do just raw foods at this point?
Well, when I was getting well, I did 75% of my food raw. All raw food is even better. But, sometimes it's hard for people to change over. And in my workbook, I've got a lot of cooked recipes at the back, and then I've got a lot of raw recipes as well.
Excellent.
And so when you cook food, as you know, you destroy the enzymes. Enzymes give life. And I should mention this before we're through with the health. When you eat raw food, then the food comes in with the enzymes necessary to help digest it. If you eat it cooked, all the enzymes are destroyed. You're eating dead food, and your body has to make the enzymes to process digest this cooked food.
Yeah.
It's estimated that in order for a body to make the enzymes to digest 3 meals of cooked food a day, it takes the equivalent of 8 hours of hard labor in energy.
Oh, my.
So no wonder people are suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and all these things.
Yeah.
And why they have to have so much coffee to hype them up. Because they're so tired because they're eating all of this heavy cooked food.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of it is animal protein, which is very hard for the body to digest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the same things that prevent and cure cancer and other diseases are also anti-aging. Anti-aging. Because you look at a plum.